Before we begin the different sections on IDEA, I'd like to go over real quickly just some of the overview of how IDEA works. If you think your child possibly has a disability, is having difficulty in school, is having behavior problems, any of those type of things, how do you access this system called the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act? It's fairly complicated, but it's really not. So what we try to do during these videos is simplify it as much as possible. So this very first section is just going to take you through real quickly what is supposed to happen. So let's take a look at this. The process begins with your child being identified as possibly having a disability. Maybe you've seen something, maybe a teacher has seen something, but there's some concerns about a possible disability. This initiates child find, where the state must identify, locate, and evaluate all children with disabilities in the state who need special education related services. To do so, states conduct a child find activity. And this is a mandatory duty upon the state to help identify children who possibly have disabilities. A lot of times when they do the child find screenings, that's where they screen a number of children to see if they have hearing losses, visual problems, anything like that, some developmental delays possibly. These are all called child find activities, and that's a mandatory duty upon the state to help find children with possible disabilities and identify them as early as possible so that the children can be served as early as possible. In addition to screenings by the state, referrals or requests for evaluations are also taken in. We talked a little bit about this. A school, a teacher may be seeing something, you may be seeing something, your doctor may be seeing something, and may ask that your child be evaluated. Once your child has been identified as possibly having a disability, then your child is evaluated. And usually this is done once your child is suspected of having a disability within 60 days. Some states are sooner than that, but usually it's not any longer than 60 days. And they assess all the areas of possible disability for your child and determine whether your child has a disability. If they determine that your child does not have a disability, then if you, the parent, disagree, then you can ask for an independent educational evaluation, which is done by somebody other than the school, and they go ahead and do an evaluation also, and the school must take that into consideration. They don't necessarily have to follow it, but they do have to take it into consideration. Once your child is identified and then evaluated, then you have a team that gets together. It's called the Multidisciplinary Evaluation Team, sometimes called the MDT team, and they look at your child's evaluation results and determine whether your child is a child with a disability. And that's as defined by IDEA. So that means that it meets the criteria of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Once again, if the team determines that your child does not have a disability and you disagree, you may ask for a hearing or an independent educational evaluation to challenge that eligibility decision. But if your child is found to be eligible for services, then within 30 calendar days, there has to be an IEP team meeting. That's an Individualized Education Program meeting to write an IEP for your child. Once an IEP meeting is scheduled, then a notice is sent out, and that's to notify the parents to let them know that they can attend, that it's at a time and place that's agreeable, that why are we having the meeting. They tell the parents the school tells the parents who will be attending, and that the parents may invite other people that know about the child. This is all in the notification of an IEP meeting. Then the IEP meeting is held and the IEP is written. And before the IEP is put into place and services provided, the parents must give consent. If the parents do not agree with the IEP, then they have lots of due process protections. They may go to mediation, they can file a complaint with the state, they may request a due process hearing. You can also discuss it with the school to see if it's something that you can't work out. Then the school ensures that services within the IEP are provided. Parents are given a copy of the IEP. The child's teachers and service providers have access to the IEP and know what their specific responsibilities are, including any accommodations, modifications, and supports. Progress during the year after the IEP is put into place is measured and reported to the parents to make sure that your child is doing well towards meeting his goals for the year. And finally, the IEP is reviewed, usually at the end of the year. If necessary, it's revised more often. Every 3 years at a minimum, your child should be reevaluated to make sure that your child still needs educational services and an IEP. Of course, a child can be reevaluated more often if additional conditions arise, or if you're seeing more behaviors, or maybe there's a medical evaluation that indicates that there's some other condition that your child may have. To sum up, there is the identification of possible disabilities, then comes an evaluation. Once there's evaluation, there's a determination of whether your child's eligible for special education services. Then, if they are determined that they're eligible, there's an IEP meeting scheduled. Then an IEP meeting is held and a plan developed, and services are provided in accordance with the plan. The services are measured throughout the year. After 1 year, you review the plan, the IEP plan, to make sure it's doing what it needs to do, and every year you revise it to write annual goals for the following year. And then every 3 years, there's a reevaluation. And that pretty much sums up the whole process for special education under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act.